Hi, my name is Nils. I'm a recording artist, producer, guitarist, and was my pleasure to play on the Third Force album this year. And I hope you guys like it and check it out.
Well, let's see. So, why don't you just say a little about your history, how you came to this? I mean, I know Tom's told me a little bit of the story about how you met, and since we're
Uh-huh.
label mates, just say a little bit about your journey to the, smooth jazz world, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, God, how much time do you have?
We are that old, aren't we?
All right. Well, it's yeah. I mean, my very first record. Um, Getting into this business was Blue Planet and was released in '98, last millennia. And and it didn't do very well, even though it had an all-star lineup. I was the only unknown person on the credits. I did a duet with George Benson on that record. I had Bobby Lyle, Saida Garrett, Sean Timur, Ricky Lawson, Abe Laboriel, Nathan East,
Wow.
Gerald Albright. You just name it. It's like a who's who of session players and musicians and stars. The label filed bankruptcy when he came out, and the whole thing went south. And I was kind of turned off on the business and wanted to turn to more film writing and maybe getting into commercials or writing for music for movies. But I always liked producing and doing music, and just 10 years later, or 9 years, that's 2005. Fast forward to '05, I had another collection of songs ready that I thought maybe I release just as a business card for my production skills, were nice polished songs and done. And I sent them to a record label called Rendezvous, who at that time just bought up all these contemporary jazz artists that were dropped from the big labels like Warner Brothers. And they started the new label. And they heard the music and they were excited. They wanted to sign me. At the same time, I gave guitar lessons in my neighborhood to this girl, and she said, "Oh, my parents have a record label." That and they heard it and they liked it. And anyways, after a while, it became obvious that with the Rendezvous records, I would be the experiment because I would be the first artist that they break, and if I don't work out, they would just use me as a write-off. And I didn't want that, so I went with the little mom and pop label since I only wanted really to have the card as like a business card. And that was Baja TSR Records, and they were excited about it and released the song. And I get a call, "Oh, your song is in the charts. Your song is in the top 10. Your song is number 5. Your
Oh,
song is number 1 on Billboard," and it stayed there. And to this day, the first song that they released, Pacific Coast Highway, is the most played
right.
song on smooth jazz radio. And and it kind of like took my career from there to make a right turn. And
Wow.
all of a sudden, I was a contemporary jazz guitarist, and now we've done 13 records. I've done 13 albums altogether since. And I'm still with the same label. I'm very happy. They're a great family, as you know the guys, and they're very supportive. The honest people, which is not that common in the music industry.
Right on.
And yeah, and I'm still happy that that I can do what I love to do every day.
That's awesome, Nils. That's awesome, Nils. And yeah, I agree with you. It's like, Baja TSR has been just awesome for us. I mean,
Yeah.
when we brought them this is our second record with them, and when we brought them Global Force, sat and played it in the living room with Tom, and he just like, sounds great. I want to release it. And we're like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden it was like we were back out there because, that after we were one of those ones that obviously got in the casualty of getting dropped by major labels since we were on Higher
Uh-huh.
Octave, which got bought up by Capitol and EMI, and then it got merged with Narada and Real World. And then it's
Right.
just like, of course, then it all fell apart with all at least this kind of genre. And
Mhm.
we thought it was like, oh, it was a great run. We did 8 records. We had a great run. And William and I then got together and just started writing. And it got to a point of like, well, do we finish this or do we just say this is fun and listen to it ourselves? we put in a little money, finished it, and good Lord, Tom released it, went #1, and we were like, okay, well, maybe
Yeah.
there is more to say. So
Yeah. The whole industry had certainly changed over the last decade and the couple decades, and we just got to find our new ways with it, and like this new working method that we communicate online remotely, and um, it's a brave new world, though. So, we just got to keep on pushing. Now, my percussionist Oliver has a saying: it's hard to keep down good music. So, if you're true to yourself and you really, create something good, it will find a way to rise to the top.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, I just in listening to your style, you seem to really merge like jazz and funk in a very unique way. Is there anything you want to say about the development of your style or what had that come into being?
Yeah. Well, growing up in Germany, my first influences was what we call today classic rock. My first concert ever was Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. It was my guitar hero. And the opening act was a band from an unknown band by then from Australia called AC/DC. So that was my introduction into really getting into the world of music and living it. And so started doing rock bands in school, and I had what we called then like well, we had a band and it fell apart. And the drummer asked me, "Hey, Nils, do you want to start a funk band?" And I said, "What is funk?" I had no idea.
Is
See,
that right?
in Germany, we didn't have radio like you had here. We had one show a week. There was like a top 40 show, and we had maybe if you get AFM, you get KCK, some top 40. But we didn't have the same exposure here. So the only way we learned about music is through friends, and we hung out in record stores and listened to albums because they would pawn, still vinyl. They put on the LP, and you could listen. We studied credits and all that kind of stuff. So I had never heard of funk music. I was 17 years old. And he brought me over to the Space Play. He had a record collection about the size of my wall back here of Ohio players, Clinton, Earth, Wind& and Fire, Chaka Khan, everything in there. And I totally lost my mind because I loved every single note I heard. And for the next few years, I was just eating up all that guitar licks from Al McKay and from Paul Jackson Jr. and these rhythm guitar parts, and I just loved doing it. So we did funk music, and then I got introduced to jazz a little bit later as I kept studying. And my first jazz concert was Steps Ahead in Munich in a little club, Michael Brecker. And that was a total mind blower because it was the first time I got stoned from listening to music because he just really blew my mind by taking a solo and increasing the intensity, chorus after chorus after chorus. When you just thought it couldn't get any more intense, they modulated and the whole thing flew up another level. And it was just, I got like a rush. So I was into that, and then combining these styles. I mean, I was never a jazz player. I came back from blues rock thing into the funk, and then started to study jazz, but I never grew up with standards and that kind of stuff. So for me, that came last on top of what I was originally doing. But then coming, I listened to, we called it at that time fusion. It was Jeff Lorber fusion, it was Larry Carlton. It was all that kind of music, early Yellow Jackets. And you can see that that was really the precursor to what's today called contemporary smooth jazz. So with that in mind, then I moved to the States in my early 20s, thinking to study guitar for a year, and then studied composition arrangement, and yeah, almost 40 years later, I'm still here. But that's how my style developed with all these different influences.
Well, so
Can I ask what years were the funk years?
That was my 80s. It was the 80s.
80s. Okay.
Late like 70s, I was still in rock. Then it was late 70s, early 80s. And I came into the States in 85. Yeah.
As I was
So,
living in Ann Arbor and Detroit in the middle of all that, I thought the whole world was that way. So it's very fascinating to hear yours from the other side of the planet there and that pull you in. But I know everything you're talking about and every artist you're speaking of. But go ahead.
What I find interesting is, have you ever seen the movie Almost Famous? And the one quote that stands out is that music chooses you. It's not, you cannot make a conscious decision to like something musically. You either do or you don't. And to me, to being opened up to a whole style of music that I didn't know existed, funk music at that time, and just like, oh, this is totally me. This works with my body, you know. The chemistry is activated when I listen to that kind of music for these grooves. It was just a total proof of that concept that you know, you can't really fault somebody for liking something or not. It either works for you or it doesn't. It's not an intellectual decision that you make. It's on a whole nother level. And I was fascinated, you know. I felt like a kid in a candy store when I heard all this music and that existed. I didn't know it existed before.
You know, we've had the pleasure of working with many guitarists on 9 albums now over 30 years in this concept of third force. And everybody has their signature in general. There's a few that are chameleon-like, but basically there's a signature there. And then you came on board, and I'm familiar with your albums, but I wasn't quite sure how you would approach it. And I don't know how to put it into words, but the way that your performance jumps and takes over without being louder. I don't know how else to say it. It's in command, and there's an attack to it. There's a velocity to it that and blues, and then the little jazz, little riffs with it. You know, it's extraordinarily you. And really fit the track well and took us to a level we didn't expect.
Well, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, and so one last question, then I want to play the track. Is there, how, you know, 'cause given you work a lot on your own material, is there a way that you approach working with someone else or doing a guest performance differently than you do when you're playing on your own track?
Not really. I listen to the music and I, you know, I think if there was my song, what would I do in there, you know? Or I mean, sometimes obviously if there's another soloist, I need to compliment, play around, find my spots, and yeah, no, I usually put it up on my computer here and I listen back and vibe with it for a while and then plug in my guitar and you know, try out a few things and say, okay, you know, find my way around in the song, make sure I'm familiar with the structure and the chords and where it's going harmonically, and then I just do my thing, you know. If this was my composition, what would I put on top of that, you know? So that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Let me ask if I may. Did you have the trumpet, the flugelhorn?
He didn't.
Okay, so you had a version without that. Okay. Well, you know,
and by now I'm really curious because I forgot what the track sounds like, so I haven't heard it since I did it.
That's great. That's great. But you know, third force, we don't have one voice that's kind of the lead voice. We change it around and mix it up, and that's our thing. And so in this case, you're kind of it's almost like a duet, you might say, with Mitch Manker, who's played with Ray Charles, and he's a sweet dear brother we've known for decades, and I don't know anybody's given more heart to more of our tracks. And you know, he's just got a real gentle touch, and there's an interplay with you in here, which is really surprising. There's areas in here that surprised both Craig and I, how well, you know, the communication happened as if you were both there together. There's a call and response thing that we took the time to, you know, arrange, and So I guess that's the setup there. Anything else you want to add, Craig?
No, I think, I mean, we can talk a little bit afterwards. I'll ask you some questions about your
Great.
reactions, but I think we should just go ahead and play it.
Oh yeah, I'm curious now. I want to hear it.
All right, good. Here, show me the way.
Wow. Well, that grabbed me from the first note, man. It's really nice track.
Thank you. That's
Great
great, Harry.
job, guys. That whole thing. And yeah, and I like the interplay with the trumpet, with the horn there. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank
You know,
you.
as a producer, sometimes it's hard to separate that when you listen, but we were hoping in this context you could just hear it as a song and enjoy
Yeah.
it, the ride,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, it's the way I listen, I always analyze right away. It's
Yeah.
like, my first question is, did I give you a guitar dry? I forgot. Probably,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Very nice reverb you put on this thing. I like the treatment.
Thank
So
you.
it's just the way my head works. It's like instantly, like I hear, okay, this
Of
guy's doing
course.
that. It's like even with vocal music. Since I grew up in Germany and English is not my first language. When I hear a song, like a pop song, I can tell you the guitar parts or all the arrangement or production things before I know what the lyrics are about. After, after one time hearing, because the lyrics just go through me, but all the little details, what's going on, the breakdown and like this effect and that is what catches my attention the first time. It's interesting. It's just the way I'm wired.
I'm exactly the same way. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, it's like when people play me songs, I say, now, if you want me to listen to the lyrics, you're gonna have to play me the song like 3 or 4 times because I'll be listening
Right,
to
or let me read
the
along
first.
with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
for me, we had a couple options, and in some cases, there's a piece or two from a few of
Hmm.
your things, but the bridge is what surprised me
Hmm.
because I had a lot of good stuff, and then we come to the bridge, which is
The
quite a little
breakdown, where
journey,
we take the
and
beat out. Yeah.
we had trumpet doing its thing, you doing your thing, Craig's playing the piano, and you know, we're just trying to get this atmosphere going. We're going to wind it back up and get back into it, and it's very touching. You're playing so minimally, but the delivery of it is, you know, like holding a baby in a way in there. And
Uh-huh.
I personally loved it. The first time I heard most of your parts through there was like, I said, "Oh my God, you just no, don't just nail it. You lay right on top of it." And it was really a treat. And I'm sure hoping we can do more of this in the future.
I'd love that. Yeah, no, it was a great track, I enjoyed listening to it. I think this is going to be a good song for you guys. I mean, I was grabbed from the first couple notes. Oh man, this is happening. The way it starts, the groove and everything. So, and yeah, I like everything about it. Really, the truth.
Oh,
Well,
that's great.
well, just so you know, it's like, of course, when you do an album, it's like we have no idea what people are going to respond to, or like what's the
Right.
first single or quote unquote. So you send it out to people who listen and try to get reactions.
Yeah.
It looks like this is going to be the first single because pretty much consistently across the board, people pick out this track as a standout.
Uh-huh.
So, it seems to get the most. I mean, people will pick this and another two, or this and then another two, but this one's always in there. So,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, no, but I can tell this has this kind of I'm a lot of my clients come to me because I have a kind of like a ear what radio likes, you know, and I can tell this is definitely a song that they're gonna love.
awesome.
It has that thing. I think it works well in that format. It works well on radio, and I think you're gonna have a lot of success with this track.
Nils, I'm curious. This is kind of a sideways question here, but you know, your roster of who you played with and spent time with. Um, was there anybody in all of who you played, whether it's a big name or a no name, just anybody you played with that you think influenced you the most, or you know, that had some bearing on your direction, or was this all inner directed? I'm just curious.
No, no. I mean, there's um, my biggest influences, I would say, was Larry Carlton. He's like for me, like for my style of playing, got a lot of out of his playing. I remember Asia. I mean, the Hey 19, the bang bang, that first note. I had to buy the album 3 times because I had to hear that one note over and over and over. How for me, it's like a perfect bend. And, until finally the vinyl got scratched and I had to buy a new record. But anyways, Larry was a big influence. And then the other big experience was Jeff Beck. And there was, and I'm not necessarily the fan of his music as much as of his guitar technique and his guitar playing. And it was the last time that I dropped my jaw and I couldn't close my mouth for an hour. I mean, when I saw him, we had center stage seats just in front of him, and I started, I'm playing way more with my fingers these days. I used to play with a pick all the time. Now I play probably 80 to 90% just with my fingers. And that's because Jeff Beck, I started working on technique and yeah, so he was a big influence, my last probably big influence as far as stylistic of playing, And then, but I never played with the two guys, I got to jam with Larry since, but as far as people that I played with, George Benson would have certainly be an influence, but he's on a whole nother level. But there was a great experience being able to do a recording with him, with a master like that.
Thank you. That's very, I mean, musically, I understand you even more now. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've got nothing else unless you've got something else. Nils, just thank you so much for your contribution to the record.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your generosity of
I just wish you all the success with the record, and let's hope we have another number one on our hands there with this track.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Main thing is, it's always about the music. Do you have a good song? And nothing can substitute that.
Yeah, completely. Or it's like when we looked at doing another one, it was my question for us was, do we have anything left to say that's worth saying? It's like you don't want to retread yourself. It's like there's got to be something in here to express. So yeah.
And I know I had the same issue just lately, like last year when I was sitting down and it felt to me like everything I write I've already written, and
I hear that.
And everything I played I already played, so I had to take a little bit of a break. And I just recently got back into a new creative mode where I'm coming up with new ideas and where I'm having fun with, it's like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Okay, this sounds different. It's something new. And because you don't want to be just like a carbon copy of yourself, And but with 13 albums, it gets trickier, because I have so much stuff out already that come up with new stuff without being totally different is sometimes tricky. But it took me a little bit time of absence to fall back into the groove there.
That's great because the fans do expect it to be you, but they want new material, and that balance can be really tricky.
Yeah.
For me this time, it was about pleasing me. It may be a little selfish. It's like I didn't want to think too much. I think it always
got to please you first, because if you're not pleased, I never would do a song just because my fans or radio expects me. I gotta love it, because otherwise it's not true. You're not gonna get that emotion across if you're not happy with it or if you're bored with it,
For me, back in the day with Higher Octave, 18 years, I produced and mixed and worked on most of their albums, and it was just really about, let's see, how would I put it? You had a radio format. I used to go to the meetings back in the day in the hotel rooms, and they would say, okay, if you're going to use a Native American instrument or something, an intro, it's a killer for radio. So we had certain rules, and at that time, the radio people, they got into, these are suits that didn't play music at all. We're saying what would work or what would make somebody turn that dial, right? I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I worked for them. So there was an element of that always in there, And the last two albums, particularly this one, it was like, you know, we have deep respect and appreciation for radio, but it didn't matter if we brought in slide guitar, because you haven't heard the rest of the album, but we got a lot of diversity going on, and we've broken a few rules with blues harmonica, you know, stuff like what the hell is this doing in smooth jazz? So, but it pleased us, and so for me, I would rather fail being daring than being safe.
And I think you will have more success being daring too, because and that's another thing. Is like, but my mantra is I'm doing albums. I'm not doing this. So many artists that these days just do one song because they're gonna go to radio. They're doing a radio song, and then they're doing another radio song and another radio song. And as you said, there's all these restrictions. If you want to be on radio, well, you don't want to be 7 minutes long. It has to be certain thing. Maybe up tempos work mostly better than ballads. For the most part, you don't want to have vocals in it. You don't want to have this and that and this. And, you know, and it just restricts your creativity. So when I do a record, I just write, and I don't have any objections to whatever comes out, and then later look at what I put together. And the nice thing about an album is that you can have tracks on there that, you know, that probably won't be good on radio, but it shows my spectrum, my musical spectrum. And as a listener, when I grew up listening to albums, always, you know, we bought the record for that one single that we heard on the radio, and we loved it. And then by listening to the rest of the album, we find some other gems and tracks that we would have never discovered, and you know, we'll get a deeper connection to the artist and to their musicality than by just listening to the radio singles, you know. So that's
is this an end of an era?
I hope not. I hope not. You know, it might. I know there's a lot of things going on with streaming and the way people, my peers, you know, produce music. They're just doing stuff. They're running. It's an economical thing, because you're running the song to radio, and that's the only way you get money back. You know. I'm glad and happy about Baja TSR. Tom, who supports me and who actually insists that we do whole records. You know, rather it would be cheaper just to doing a song, run it to radio, make the money back, do another song. But I think the value, you know, for the fans and for me as an artist to express myself, it would just be diminished if it just did that.
Nils, that's so beautifully said. And you expressed, I mean, you almost said it exactly. Do you know who Rick Beato is, the music YouTuber? And he's like, he just did a video about albums versus singles, because, you know, William and I early in this process was talking about, you know, it's like, oh, should we do more of a single driven, you know, it's like, because that's the way it is in streaming. And, you know, Rick said exactly what you said. He said, how many times have you gone to an artist because of a single and discovered a track that instantly becomes your favorite, that then connects you to them? And that's the joy of music, is like being able to find those, you know, it's like when we announced the record on our Facebook, someone wrote us from Ukraine and just said, hey guys, I'm so excited to hear your new record. Just so you know, when the air raid sirens go off in Ukraine, I play third force because it gives me a sense of peace. And it's like, and you know, what better compliment than that? I mean, it's like, we didn't do this music for us. We did it for the people who, you know, we did it because we like it, but it's like, none of us are in this for the money. I mean, it's like, this is not a, you know, this market is not that, but the connection to the fans and the people that make our music the soundtrack of their lives makes it worth it for us.
Yeah.
But when we got the first Earth, Wind and Fire album, and you played it from the first track to the end, it was a movie. You didn't want just one scene, one chapter. You didn't want to mix up the chapters. They had the whole pacing, rise and fall, every damn song on that record. Kill. And I remember being in Ann Arbor, Michigan, young man, and that was just blaring in rooms, in dormitories everywhere all night. And, you know, for days and days when it came out. I know you know that feeling.
Yeah, and exactly. And to these days, when one of the important things about doing a record is the sequencing of the songs. what comes after each other. You know, I'm not just putting them randomly up as I write them.
Same.
It's like a live show in a way. On when I do a live performance, I kind of figure what is my opening track, and then take him here, and then maybe take him back down, and then bring it back up, or you know how a record is slightly different than live performance, but the same amount of thinking goes into the sequencing of the music. You know, and it's a whole experience. So I love
Well,
it.
we just went through that in finishing the album, the same exact thing you're describing. We have a beginning and we have an end with a period, and and a flow through, and we tested a few sequences and so on. So I'm deeply relating to you. My heart feels a little sadness. You know, most everybody I know, it's a playlist. You make your own thing, and even I'm tempted to do that with, you know, discover songs and so on. And I'm hoping this is not an aging art form, the album concept, but I know we're all simpatico in this.
Yeah, I think there might be other ways that this is going to reemerge. At least I'm hopeful about that. You know, whether it's you know, vinyl coming back, even though I'm always doubtful about something coming back. The convenience is just so easy with streaming. But you know, maybe I'm an ambassador for, you know, let's do albums,
We're there with you.
collections of songs, and really get to know the artist. You know, because the radio it used to be, and it still is, only advertising. You have a song that advertises your album. That was the idea of a single. You know, you put that out there so people buy the album. You know, and nobody gets rich from doing a single. You know, so I don't even sell singles. I just do all records. And saying I'll have radio success, but I want people really to get deep into the tracks. I'm doing a show on, it was Facebook, now on YouTube every week. If I'm not out on the road, I'm doing Nils Live from Home, where I play from my repertoire and do requests and deep cuts and stuff that you know, all kinds of stuff. I always pick like 6-7 songs that I perform, and sometimes I get challenged by some requests for songs I haven't played in 20 some years, you know, and I have to go back and relearn them, you know. So it's quite interesting, and yeah, it also gives me the chance to show my audience, the ones that are watching me, some of the tracks that they might not have heard, you know. It's like, and tell about how this song came about and all that kind of stuff, you know.
That's awesome. And do you play with track? How do you do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do with tracks. You know, I got a system where it's the same system I use live. I use Logic, and I can control it. I can control Logic with foot switches, where it loops certain sections and then goes on to the rest of the song. So my solos are open till cue. And it's the same session I use live. It's just like I'm live, the drummer and the bass player and the keyboard player are muted, and if I unmute it, it's you know, there's just stems. I have them as backing tracks. So, and I have a session of 130 songs in it. You know, it's a huge Jazz Logic session.
Wow.
But it's fun to pick, and it's fun to do it every week. And as I said, I'm still adding songs to it that sometimes I get a request. Oh, I totally forgot about that one. I gotta sometimes even create backing tracks that at the beginning of my career I didn't have them. You know, I didn't think in those terms. And trying to find an old TV track of a song, you know, is a challenge. But over the years, I got there, that most of my stuff I got available is just for me to jam over, or for others to buy.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Ora and I ran into the same. I mean, we never played live for our first, I don't know, 6 albums or something. I mean, it was like we started in '94 and didn't play live until 2005. And it was a challenge too, because I don't know how I mean, we had ADATs and then triggering MIDI, and it was dependent on the MIDI box that we don't have anymore.
Yeah, no, it's like I went for the whole thing. I started on 2-inch tape, then went to my first record, Blue Planet, started on 2-inch, then went to ADATs, and oh, what a pain in the butt there was to mix on ADATs. So, if you want to go back 20 seconds, it takes 2 minutes, because until you get 5 ADATs to lock up, it takes.
Oh, we know.
Go way back. You gotta go way back, and
I got an extra stack
finally
in
with
the
the
garage if you
computers,
need it.
in the beginning it was also kind of iffy, and then and then it evolved where today it's just the tools are there, and the tools are there, and I got more power on my laptop that we used to have at a huge mixing board in these days. It's incredible.
Yeah, completely. Well, I mean, you describing your Logic session to me makes me want to come down to your studio and geek out, because it's like, obviously, it's like,
check it out. If you go to YouTube, my YouTube channel, Nils Guitar, there's a playlist called How to Use Logic for Live Backing Tracks.
oh wow,
It's like a 10-part series where I explain detail how I do it.
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
And,
awesome.
it's just about all these things. Like these days, as an artist, you got to self-promote. You got to find people, interesting things to share and stuff. And it's funny because I'm actually selling a template. I've explained how to do it, but I'm also selling a template. And since I put this up, every month I sell a few of these templates all over the world. People checking that out and learning about this. So it's kind of
Awesome.
rewarding in that way. And I just this year I did an update. I've done it like 5 years ago, I think, the original one. And this year I updated it, added some additional things, because for my live show, I'm also using Logic to switch the cameras for my YouTube show. And you can do lights. I'm switching my camper amp, the sounds from a rhythm sound to a lead sound, or a different lead sound.
Oh my goodness.
And it's all, I don't even have to touch anything. I just play, and I know it's like when the solo comes up, my guitar is going to kick into another sound automatically. And there's so much you can do, and it's fun. It's fun. Then it opens me up just to being the player, without having to have the other stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, then I definitely will check it out. I mean, you'll convert me. We use Mainstage as our live thing, just because it's like it seemed to me to be the best combination of me having both a virtual instrument on there with no latency and backing tracks. But I mean, being a Logic guy, I would be really curious to see what you're doing.
Check it out. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Nils.
All right,
well,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you, guys, and so much. I wish you so much success with the record, and really excited to hear it on the radio, man.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you, Nils.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All right.